I am not scared. As a matter of fact, if you are the coronavirus and you're watching this video, I ain't scared. See, I ain't scared.
Hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to become part of the Transplant Helper community.
So I'm sitting around the supper table the other night. I've got a ton of friends in the room, family members, people I'm very familiar with, some of which happen to be organ transplant patients. Others happen to be organ donors. You know, it's just kind of the whole gamut. Everybody in the room knew something about organ donation. They knew something about, to an extent, whether it be through their own experience or the experience of their loved one, knew something about being immunosuppressed. And so obviously, you're not going to sit in a room with people for that long without this virus coming up. So let's just say it out loud right now.
You can't actually say the C word on YouTube.
It's what the conversation was the other night. And as everyone in the room went around and gave their opinion, and there were opinions in the room that went from, I think it's all a hoax, where there's nothing to worry about, it's a conspiracy theory, to the other end of the spectrum, which were those who said, no, this is real. We need to panic. We need to be digging ourselves up in a hole somewhere and not coming out, and, hoping for the best. And there were so many extremes in that. And I heard everything in between, by the way, especially heard those who were transplant patients who were like myself, who were for the most part just saying, let's be extremely careful, not necessarily panic, but they admitted they were scared, they were afraid, they were apprehensive, all of that sort of thing. And so finally, after all of that was going on, and I was just kind of laying low. I was enjoying my meal, so I was just, eating away. I like stuff in my face, but I was just eating away, eating my meal, not really responding to that until finally, one of the people I respect in the room the most, one of the people who I knew was asking out of true concern for their family member, as well as asking out of real concern and love for me, said, Jim, what is your take on the virus? What do you think about it? How do you feel? Are you afraid? That sort of thing. And so I decided after that, because I had received so many of those same comments, so many questions over on social media, many people sending me text messages, private messages, asking me how I feel about it. I thought it'd be time for me to sit down and to be totally honest with you about how I feel. Now, that's my disclaimer. This is how I feel. This is the fear level I'm at, if there is one. This is the concern level I'm at. This is the precautions I'm taking. That's about what this video is about. So this is more or less me opening up my heart, my mind to you and sharing it. And then you can take this and you may say, well, I totally agree. You may say, I totally disagree, or somewhere in between. That's fine. But I did want to share this with you because people are asking, so I want to share. Now, as a disclaimer, before I say anything else, please remember, I am not a medical doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm certainly not an infectious disease doctor, so I know nothing about that. The closest thing I've ever come to a doctor is standing beside one. And so I don't have any medical advice and medical opinion for you that's really going to count. If you really want to know what you need to do, I would suggest you ask your team. However, in my opinion, this is my opinion, and in my mind, I have set my mind, period, to say I am not afraid, okay? I'm not scared of this. I am not at all scared of this. Now, I'm going to be cautious. I'm going to take precautions. I'm going to be considerate of other people. That is, if I feel like I'm sick, I'm not going to get around them. I also want to, and I want you to do this, to tell everyone who is around you. If they feel like they're sick, stay away. We do not want what you have. That's the overall of it, okay? Stay away. We don't want what you have. I'm going to take the typical precautions of washing my hands. For the most part, washing, washing, soap and water. When I absolutely cannot do that, there'll be some hand sanitizer involved. When I go out in public places, which I don't intend to do very often because actually we're being asked to stay away and avoid those, but if and when I have to, I'm going to be wearing a mask. That's what I'm going to do. But guess what? That's what I have been doing, and many of you as well. That's what I've been doing for the last 7 years, since my transplant. That's the type of thing I've been doing for 7 years. I've been telling people if they're sick, stay away. I've been pushing them back. Thankfully, many of those people, when they're sick, and I walk toward them to say a word, to speak if we're in public, they oftentimes stop me and say, Jim, you don't want to come any closer? You don't want what I've got. And I certainly don't want what they have. So that's how, I kind of basically feel about that. Now, again, to back up to that statement, I am not afraid. Let me explain why I'm not afraid. Friends, I'm not afraid for the same reason many of you may not be afraid as well, if you really think about it, because I have been through worse. Okay? If you're an organ transplant patient, the implication there, the thing that we know about that is in order to become an organ transplant patient, you had to go through a terrible, terrible situation to get there. You had to be in complete organ failure, near about organ shutdown. For me, it was heart failure, so it was called stage 4 heart failure. And you had to endure that for months and months and months and months, and sometimes years, and sometimes in some cases for decades, okay? You've already been through that. You made it through that process. You made it through a time when your life hung in the literal balance, when you were on what my friend Mark Barber calls on a razor's edge of life and death, when every breath, every heartbeat could make the complete difference in whether or not you're going to continue to sustain life. When you're in the middle of a position like I was, where you're wearing IVs stuck all in you, central lines all in you 24/7, when you're having to deal with whatever life you have based on that. When you end up landing yourself in the hospital, in the most critical care units of the whole hospital, like I did, CICU and HTICU, all of these units which would terrify, and terrified us, by the way, but which would terrify anybody. When you've got nurses that are specially trained to care directly for those who are the most critical, who need the most care. When literally, like many times, my nurses, and there were two sometimes, that literally were required to sit at the end of my bed and stare at me to be sure my vitals didn't get off. When literally I had cameras in my room, huge cameras in my room, which not only, in addition to all the vital signs, are taking because of all the machines that were hooked up, but they're literally watching me from cameras and having a nurse sit in my room. You know, when life is at its worst, I was there. And many of you were there as well. When post-transplant, everyone was so excited. Jim got his heart transplant. Things going to go great. We're cheering, jumping in the halls. I wasn't jumping yet, but some were, jumping in the halls, clapping, all that sort of stuff. I was still laying in the bed in CICU, horrified over what was going on. Tubes everywhere, breathing tubes, ventilators, you name all this stuff going on. The guy in the curtain next to me, and the most critical of critical units there were curtained off. The guy in the curtain next to me, who had a nurse at his feet of his bed just like I did, he crashed one night 4 times. 4 times he went into full cardiac arrest. 4 times they had to do CPR. 4 times they had to shock his body. And believe you hadn't seen nothing if you've seen that on TV. You hear that happen in real life, where you hear the shock go off, and then you hear, in addition to that, the gasp of the guy coming back. 4 times that happened that night. And then to hear on the last time, this goes on for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes, and finally you hear someone literally call the time of death on this fella. And I'm terrified because I'm hearing all this. I'm hearing all this go on. There's someone dying next to me, apparently. He does die. They walk around the curtain, and I say, what happened to him? And the reply was, he had a heart transplant. I'm going, I'm 6 hours outside a heart transplant, and the guy next to me dies, and he had the same thing. Yes, I was scared. Yes, I was scared. And I stayed that way for days, and I'm traumatized by that now. But that's what scares me in life. I have been through, and many of you as well, we have been through the most horrifying, terrifying, awful things in life, for good reason, obviously, transplant. But we've been through that. And folks, your life is not in nearly as much danger right now given this virus, and given how contagious it is, and given how immune suppressed you are, and whatever. You're in nowhere near as much danger right now as you were then. And I'll tell you why. Then you were in the condition. You were the sick patient. You were already there. You were already having to go through this. This was on you. It was real. It was unget-overable. You weren't going to get out of that situation. Then, believe it or not, statistically, there were many more people dying waiting for transplant than living. And so what happened to that guy that night was not rare. Matter of fact, I got my heart, folks, because I was on a unit of people. And out of the people who were, I hate to say it, but for lack of better terms, were competing for the same organ. That meaning by that, we had basically the same body size, basically the same blood type, basically the same tissue typing. Potentially could have been a match for the same heart I got. But out of the people waiting there on that unit, out of the 3, I think there were there, maybe there was 4, I may have miscounted. Anyway, but out of the 3 or 4 that were there, guess who died? Every one of them but me. Okay? That'll shake you to your core, folks. That strikes fear in me. If I have to go through that again, and some of you are, and I pray to God for those of you who are going through that, and I pray to God that your whole story and journey will continue and the new gift will come and all that. For those of you who are in that position, I'm scared for you. But I'm not scared of this virus. Not in that way. Because this virus is a chance thing that you get it. If you do what you're instructed, and I mean by that, in spite of being immunosuppressed, in spite of being older, like they're warning those 2 particular groups, in spite of being pregnant, like the group they added yesterday that are at very high risk, in spite of all that, if we can stay in our places, like in our homes, thankfully. I have a home to stay in. If I can stay in my home, limit my exposure to everyone around me, quarantine myself, even though I'm not sick, take my medications on time, every time in the right way. Be sure that I'm washing. Man, I'm taking 2 showers a day plus hand washing. We're washing our clothes every single day. We're making sure that we're precautious, that we're taking precautions. I'm taking time. I live in the country, so I'm taking time to go out and enjoy the fresh air and the sunshine, because outdoor air is better than indoor air any day, anytime. I'm trying to rest well. Part of your immune system being strong is getting enough sleep to allow your body to build its immune system. That's a lot of what it does at night. It's either recovering from the day before or it's preparing for the day ahead through its immune system. I'm letting all that take its course. And so I am not scared. Now, I made 3 videos on this, including this one right here. The first one I said, don't worry about it. Don't panic. It's in China. It won't affect us in the same way. I still stand by that. It's not going to affect us in the same way it did China. We have a different medical care system. We have a different sanitation system, to boil it down. Okay? For the most part. Our population is different. We're not nearly as densely populated as anywhere in China. Now, there's some big cities. There's some overpopulated cities. I get that. But for the most part, per capita, we're not nearly as populated. So there's some things that are different about what happened there and in Italy and other places that are not going to happen here in the same way. So I'm not scared. I'm not stupid, but I'm not scared. So just calm down. I'm calming down. Let me smile at you. See that? See, I really don't actually smile. But let me smile at you and say, I'm not upset with anyone. If anyone wants to have panic in their heart, then run after it and go after it. But I don't think that's going to do anything but stress you out. It could even cause damage to your heart. Man, how many people are going to end up with heart attacks and strokes because of fear in this? I'm not going to be one of those. I am not afraid. Because I, like you, I've been through so much worse. Stay stronger, friends.